The great hall of the galactic conclave was a sight to behold. Light from 1,000 different stars streamed through crystalline walls, dancing over the delegates from countless worlds. There were tall beings with skin like polished stone, floating orbs of gentle light, and creatures with many limbs and keen, intelligent eyes. The air hummed softly with the translated whispers of 100 languages. At the center of the room, a huge holographic map of the galaxy spun slowly. Ambassador Clar of the Philesian Union stepped forward. His people looked like elegant bipedal cats, with fine gray fur and large green eyes. He smoothed his ceremonial robe and cleared his throat. The quiet chatter in the hall died down. "Honored members of the conclave," he began, his voice a soft purr. "Our agenda today includes a final review of a potential new member species from a minor spiral arm." He gestured with a delicate clawed hand. A section of the hologram zoomed in, focusing on a small yellow star. A single blue and white planet circled it. The system is called Sol. The third planet is known as Earth. 7 standard cycles ago, their satellites and telescopes detected our early scout probes. Shortly after, they achieved their first faster-than-light warp jump. This qualifies them for first contact under our laws. A low murmur of interest went through the crowd. New species were always a source of curiosity, and sometimes new trade. "Standard protocols were followed," Clar continued. "We sent the first contact package. This included a basic history of the conclave, principles of peaceful coexistence, technological greetings, and an invitation to send a representative. We sent it on all common frequencies. We even dispatched a physical messenger drone to the edge of their system containing the full archives of galactic knowledge and art. It was a gift and an invitation." He paused, and his whiskers twitched slightly. "There has been no response." The murmur grew louder. No response was unusual. Most species shouted with joy or fear or confusion into the void the moment they realized they were not alone. "Nothing?" boomed a gritty voice. It was Counselor Vrax from the Cruel Dominion. His body was made of interlocking silicate plates, and his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "No signals at all? Not even a failed attempt?" "None. Complete and absolute radio silence on all channels they previously used. Our long-range scanners show their planet is still teeming with life. Their cities still have power. Their ships still move between their own worlds. But they have gone utterly quiet to the wider galaxy. They absorbed our knowledge and said nothing." A sleek, armored figure stood up. This was the representative of the Tikan Empire, a powerful and warlike species. "This is not a mystery. It is a sign of weakness. They are either too primitive to understand the message, or the shock of our existence caused their society to collapse. Or perhaps," he said, a sneer in his voice, "they blew themselves up with the warp drive. Young species are so unstable. Their silence is the silence of the dead, or the soon-to-be dead." Many in the chamber nodded. This was a logical explanation. The galaxy was old and had seen such things before. Clar felt a small knot of unease. The data was too clean. "Our initial scans before the silence showed a species of remarkable adaptability and rapid technological growth. Their history indicated resilience, not fragility." "Irrelevant!" The Tikan delegate waved a dismissive hand. "They have failed to answer the call. Therefore, they have no place here. I move that the Sol system be declared inert, its potential member status revoked, and the region quarantined for reassessment in 1,000 cycles. Our time is too valuable to waste on ghosts." The motion was put to a vote. On the vast holographic display, a wave of blue lights flashed in agreement. Only a few yellow lights of abstention glowed. No red lights of opposition appeared. The motion passed. Just like that, humanity was filed away. The Great Conclave moved on to the next topic, a trade dispute about mining rights in a nebula. The file on Earth was marked with a gray symbol meaning inert, no further action, and vanished into the depths of the galactic network. No one thought to look more closely. No one wondered why a species that had just achieved the stars would suddenly stop using all interstellar communications. No one considered that silence could be a choice, not a consequence. They did not see the quiet, coordinated shutdown of external-facing signals on Earth. They did not detect the new, tighter-focused laser networks being built between Mars and Jupiter's moons. They missed the fleets of stealthy observation probes, built with newfound alien science, launched silently from the dark side of Earth's moon to listen, to watch, to study. Every transmission from the conclave. The galaxy had offered humanity a seat at their table. When humanity did not immediately jump up and shout thanks, the galaxy assumed they were not hungry. They did not consider that humanity might be quietly studying the table, the chairs, the other guests, and the exits, deciding not just if they wanted to sit down, but how the whole dining room was built. As the meeting adjourned, Ambassador Clark looked one last time at the star map. The little blue dot was already fading from the main display. He felt that twinge of unease again, a hunter's instinct from his ancient past. Silence in the wilderness could mean emptiness, but it could also mean something was hiding, watching, and learning. He shook his head, smoothing his fur. He was being foolish. The Takan were likely right. Another brief, bright flame snuffed out by the vastness of space. He turned and left the hall, the fate of soul forgotten. The silence from the small blue planet deepened, wrapping around it like a cloak. And within that cloak, a civilization was not dying, it was learning, with a focus and patience that the chatty, busy galaxy had completely failed to understand.
5 cycles passed in the galaxy. On the records of the conclave, the Sol system was a quiet gray mark, a place not to be visited. Most ships set their navigation computers to avoid it automatically. It was a forgotten corner. But on the fringes of known space, small things began to happen, strange little events that no one connected. On a dusty mining world called Lyra Prime, a Fredopapti named Leo was finishing his lunch. He was a practical man, his face lined from a life spent under different suns. A message alert chirped on his data pad. It was from a deep space prospector, a friend who hunted for rare minerals in the empty zones. The message was broken and full of static. Seeing ghost signals, Leo, out near the old Takan border. Not on any known frequency, they pulse, then vanish. Like something is testing the water. My scanners don't even know how to read the energy signature. It's given me a bad feeling. Leo read it twice, sipped his coffee, and saved the file under miscellaneous. Space was full of odd sensor echoes. It was probably a glitch in the prospector's old equipment or a bit of space weather. He thought nothing more of it. In a different sector, at a university on a peaceful world, a scientist named Maya was getting frustrated. She was an expert in ancient alien computer systems. Her current project was trying to explain a series of strange malfunctions at remote research outposts. She presented her findings to a small group of colleagues. Her screen showed data from 3 different outposts, each owned by a different species. At each one, the main computer core had experienced a sudden, total crash exactly 37 standard days ago. When the systems rebooted, they were perfectly fine. But a tiny, almost invisible piece of code was left behind. It was not a virus, it did not steal information, it just observed. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the lines of code. "The structure is completely new. It's elegant, it's efficient, it's like nothing I've ever seen from any of the conclave species. It's a perfect little listener. I believe it's evidence of a previously unknown natural subspace phenomenon that can affect computer systems." Her colleagues were polite but unconvinced. One of them, an older scientist, shook his head. "A natural phenomenon does not write code, Doctor. It is far more likely that this is a new type of malware from the Takan. Or perhaps the Felicians are spying on their rivals. You are reading poetry and random data." Maya's theory was dismissed. The report was filed away and forgotten. The incidents piled up, but they were always separate. A small trading post reported all their food synthesizers started making a delicious but unknown blue dessert for exactly 1 hour. A communications relay on a lonely moon went silent for 10 minutes, then came back online with no memory of the gap. A patrol of Takan fighters reported a brief, impossible power drain on their ships while passing a dark nebula. as if something invisible had taken a sip of their energy. The great powers heard these stories. The Takan blamed the Felicians blamed rogue machines, everyone blamed pirates or space ghosts. The conclave, busy with important politics, paid no attention to the worries of small colonies and freighter captains. It was all just noise. They did not see the pattern.
Far away in the Silent Sol system, the picture was very clear. Around the planet Saturn, hidden by its rings and the bulk of its moons, a large facility hung in space. It was not beautiful. It was gray, blocky, and covered in strange dish-like sensors. Inside, the light was soft and blue. A woman named Elena sat in a quiet room. Before her was not one screen, but a wall of them. Each screen showed a different piece of the galaxy. One showed the confused report from Leo's prospector friend. Another showed Maya's dismissed analysis of the strange code. Another showed the flight path of the Tikan fighters that experienced the power drain. To the galaxy, these were unconnected dots. To Elena, they were points on a map that was now nearly complete. Her fingers moved over a smooth panel. Lines of light streaked across the main screen, connecting the dots. The mining scout's ghost signal connected to the outpost's corrupted code. That connected to the drained Tikan fighters. A web of light grew, spreading across a map of the galactic arm. It was a picture of testing, of gentle, careful probing. A door hissed open behind her. A man walked in. He had the calm look of a soldier, but he wore a simple gray uniform with no badges. His name was Alex. "Report," he said, his voice quiet. Elena did not turn around. She gestured at the glowing web. Phase 1 of the perimeter probe network is complete. The stealth drones we sent out 5 years ago are in place. They have tested the sensory and defensive capabilities of 17 different major and minor species. The results are consistent. "And the conclusion?" Alex asked, stepping closer to look at the map. Elena finally turned. Her face was serious, but there was a sharp light in her eyes. "Their technology is predictable. Their security is built for show, not for real secrecy. They look for big threats, loud threats. They do not look for whispers. They never even glanced at our silent probes, just as the Conclave never truly looked at us." Alex nodded slowly, looking at the map where their small, silent drones had moved like ghosts through the territories of ancient empires. "So they're still not looking. Not even a little," Elena said. She dapped a command. The web of light on the screen dissolved, replaced by a simple, green symbol. "All data is confirmed. The galaxy is blind to our kind of quiet. Phase 2 is ready for your command." Alex looked at the green light for a long moment. He thought of the Conclave's dismissal, the file marked inert. He thought of the patience of the last 5 years. "Tell the Council on Earth to proceed. Begin Phase 2. Let's see what happens when this silence ends." In the quiet room, Elena sent the message. It was not a radio broadcast that could be intercepted. It was a pulse through a secured quantum network, invisible to the rest of the galaxy. A single word traveled instantly to a command center on Earth. "Proceed." Outside the station, in the deep, endless quiet of space, nothing seemed to change. But humanity had just finished listening, and now they were ready to speak. The galaxy continued its noisy business. The strange little events were forgotten, filed away as glitches and mysteries. The great powers turned their attention to more important matters. The Takan Empire was one of the oldest and strongest. Their society was built on conquest. They believed that strength was the only truth, and they showed their strength by taking what they wanted. They had watched the Helios Republic for many cycles. The Republic was peaceful. Their ships were for science and trade, not war. They grew beautiful crystals and were known for their music. To the Takan, they were weak, and the weak existed to be conquered. The Takan High Command announced a pacification action against the Helios Republic. They said the Republic was a risk to galactic stability. Everyone knew this was a lie. It was simply a land grab. Other species protested, but the Conclave did nothing. They were afraid of the Takan fleet. The day of the attack arrived. The Takan Armada was a terrifying sight. Hundreds of ships, each one shaped like a brutal claw or a sharp tooth, gathered at the edge of the Helios system. Their weapons glowed with angry red light. Their shields hummed with power. They were the picture of invincibility. On the command ship, the Takan warlord felt a deep satisfaction. This would be quick. The Helios defenses were a joke. He would broadcast their surrender to the entire galaxy before the next meal. "All ships," he growled into the communicator, Junk into the system on my mark. Crush any resistance. Target their capital city first. Let them see our power." He gave the mark. Space twisted and tore as the massive Takan fleet jumped into the heart of the Helios system. They appeared in perfect formation, ready for battle. They found nothing. The system was empty. The small Helios defense fleet was gone. The orbital stations were dark. The planet below was quiet. Scanners showed no energy weapons charging, no ships hiding behind the moons. It was just peaceful. The warlord was confused. Then he was angry. Was this a trick? Had the Helios people run away? It did not matter. He would still take the planet. "Orbital positions," he ordered. "Begin bombardment of the primary population center. If they will not fight, they will burn." His weapons officer moved to obey. His hand hovered over the control panel. And then the lights went out. Not just on his ship, on every single Takan ship in the Armada. Every screen went black. Every engine stopped humming. The red glow of the weapons died. The comforting sound of the life support systems fell silent. The command bridge was suddenly dark and quiet, lit only by the dim light of the distant sun. Panic began. Engineers shouted. They found no damage, no breach. The power was just gone. It was as if the ships had simply decided to stop being ships. They were now just large, cold pieces of metal drifting in space. In the silence, a new sound began, a low, gentle hum. It came from outside. From behind the largest moon of Helios Prime, shapes began to emerge. They were ships, but not like any the Takan had seen. They were sleek and gray, with smooth lines and no visible weapons. They did not look dangerous. They looked like simple cargo haulers. These gray ships moved with a quiet, graceful speed. They flew straight towards the helpless Takan armada. On his dark bridge, the warlord watched them come through the viewport, his blood running cold. Who were they? What were they doing? The gray ships did not fire. They did not send a threatening message. They simply spread out. Each one moved close to a massive Takan warship. Then from their smooth hulls, bright blue beams of light shot out. Tractor beams. They latched onto the Takan ships with gentle but unbreakable strength.
One by one, the great and terrible ships of the Takan armada were taken hold of. Then the gray ships began to move, towing the giant warships behind them as easily as a child pulls a toy wagon. It was a slow, silent, and deeply humiliating procession. The gray ships pulled the entire Takan fleet, hundreds of powerful warships, away from the helpless planet. They pulled them out of the system entirely, leaving the people of Helios untouched and unharmed. The entire event was recorded. The Helios Republic had their sensors watching. So did hidden probes from the Felicians, the Krull, and others. The data streamed live to the Galactic Conclave. In the Great Hall, a crowd had gathered to watch the expected Takan victory. They saw everything. They saw the fleet arrive. They saw the power go out. They saw the strange gray ships appear and tow the mighty Takan away like broken toys. The silence in the conclave hall was total. It was a different kind of silence than the one from the Sol system. This was the silence of complete shock. Ambassador Kalar felt his fur stand on end. He watched the last gray ship, towing a Takan dreadnought 10 times its size, vanish from the sensor image. He remembered the quiet blue planet. He remembered the reports of ghost signals and strange code. The dots connected in his mind with a terrible, clear snap. This was not a new empire. This was not a rival from the other side of the galaxy. This was the silence that had been ignored. And now it was speaking, not with words, but with an act of such overwhelming power that it made their entire concept of war look childish. A frantic analysis began. Who built the ships? Where did they come from?
The energy signatures were traced. The quantum wake of their engines was studied. The answer came back, and it was impossible. The trail led back to a quiet, forgotten corner of the Orion Spur, to a star system marked inert. The file on Sol was pulled up on the main screen. The gray symbol glowed mockingly. The humans. It was the humans. As the conclave descended into panic and argument, a new signal arrived. It was not on a secret channel. It was a powerful, clear broadcast on every major conclave frequency. It was a voice, speaking in perfect, calm, galactic common. "You mistook our contemplation for weakness," the voice said. A face appeared on the screen. It was a human man with a calm expression. He sat in a simple chair on what looked like a clean, functional bridge. "You mistook our desire to understand before we spoke for ignorance. You declared us irrelevant." He paused, letting the words sink into the terrified silence of 1,000 worlds. "We have been listening. We have been learning. We have found your systems lacking. The silent period is over." The transmission ended. In the dark of space, near the edge of human territory, the first of the gray ships finished towing its captured Takan warship to a secure location. The work was done. No one on the human ship cheered. They simply checked their systems and prepared for the next task. The message had been sent. The galaxy was now, finally, paying attention.
Panic is a rare feeling for a civilization that has ruled the stars for thousands of years. But in the halls of the Galactic Conclave, it was now the only thing anyone could feel. The images of the Tarkan Armada being led away like lost animals played on a loop. The calm human voice echoed in their minds. They had to respond. They could not let this stand. A new, unknown power had just made fools of the strongest military force in the galaxy. If the Conclave did nothing, it would mean the end of their authority. Every species would lose faith. Chaos would follow. An emergency session was called. Arguments and fear filled the air. Finally, a decision was made. It was a show of force, a demonstration. They would not attack Earth directly, not yet. They would send the Conclave's own fleet, the combined peacekeeping armada, to the Sol system. This fleet was a symbol. It contained ships from every major species, a living proof of galactic unity and power. They would enter the system, surround the blue planet, and demand an explanation. They would show humanity that the galaxy was not to be trifled with. They would force them to talk on Conclave terms. It was the biggest military mobilization in recent history. Hundreds of magnificent ships gathered. They were the elegant, silvery vessels of the Philesians, the blocky, solid ships of the Kroll Dominion. Even a few reluctant Tarkan warships eager for revenge joined the formation. It was a breathtaking sight, a rainbow of technology and might. The journey to the Sol system was tense. Every captain watched their sensors, waiting for an attack. None came. The system was as quiet as the reports had said. Too quiet. They arrived at the edge of the system. The star Sol shone brightly. There was the blue marble of Earth hanging in the blackness, looking small and fragile. The Conclave fleet spread out in a wide, imposing half-circle around the planet. Their weapons were powered, their shields glowed. They were the picture of unstoppable power. The admiral in charge was a Philesian named Tree. He stood on the bridge of the flagship, a vessel shaped like a sweeping blade of light. He took a deep breath to steady his nerves. This was it. He opened a channel to the planet below, using the standard first contact frequencies. "People of Earth, this is Admiral Tree of the Galactic Conclave Combined Fleet. You have acted with aggression and without communication. You will explain your actions immediately. You will surrender the captured Tarkan vessels. You will submit to Conclave authority. Transmit your full surrender, or we will be forced to—" A sharp, sudden beep cut him off. A small, text-only message had appeared on his main screen. It was not on the open channel. It had come directly to his ship's computer, bypassing all of his security. It contained 2 words in the galactic common script. "You're late." Tree stared at the message, his blood turning cold. Before he could speak, the ship's systems began to sing.
Not an alarm, actual singing. A gentle, cheerful, and very ancient human folk tune filled the bridge. The main viewing screen, which had been showing the planet Earth, changed. Now it displayed a complex list of ingredients and step-by-step instructions. It was a recipe for something called chocolate layer cake. All around him his officers began to shout in confusion. "Sir, navigation is offline. The computer says it is learning to bake. Life support is stuck on a setting called spring rain. The ship smells like flowers. Weapons control is gone. All power from the capacitors is being routed to the external decorative lights."
Admiral Tree looked out the main viewport in horror. Across the vast Conclave fleet, the same absurd nightmare was playing out. The Krull battleships, famous for their powerful engines, were drifting gently, their hulls lit up with swirling patterns of pretty useless colors. A Tican destroyer was spinning slowly, its loudspeakers broadcasting what sounded like a human child reciting poetry. A Felician cruiser had all its viewports flashing in time to a peppy, rhythmic music beat. It was not an attack, it was a transformation. Their mighty warfleet had become a floating festival of nonsense. And then the human ships arrived. They came up from the dark side of Earth's moon. There were not many of them, perhaps 24. The same sleek, gray, weaponless ships from the Helios system. They moved through the paralyzed Conclave fleet without hurry. They did not fire a single shot. They did not need to. Each gray ship moved close to a Conclave vessel. The bright blue tractor beams shot out again, but this time they did not just latch on. The beams seemed to merge with the alien ships. The wild, chaotic systems of the alien vessels began to calm. The singing stopped. The recipes vanished from the screens. The spinning ships stabilized. Then, with the same gentle, unstoppable force, the gray ships began to tow. They collected the Conclave fleet. One by one, the greatest symbols of galactic power were taken hold of and pulled into a neat, orderly line. Admiral Tree could only watch from his bridge, the smell of spring rain filling his nose, as a small gray ship attached a beam to his magnificent flagship. He felt a slight tug. He was being moved. His ship, the pride of the Felician Union, was being towed like a barge. The humiliation was absolute. It was deeper than defeat. Defeat meant you were fought and beaten. This meant you were not even worth fighting. Your greatest strength was not met with greater strength, but with a kind of technological pity. Humanity had not just beaten their fleet, they had rewired its purpose and put it away. The gray ships led the entire Conclave armada out of the Sol system. They took them to an empty patch of space between Mars and Jupiter. There, they released the tractor beams. The Conclave ships sat there, their systems finally returning to normal control. They were unharmed. They had full power. They could have jumped away immediately. But no one gave the order. No one moved. The fight had been drained from them, not by violence, but by sheer, overwhelming superiority. They had come to issue demands. They had been turned into a joke and then neatly parked. A final transmission came, directed to Admiral Tree's personal console. It was the same human man from the earlier broadcast. "Admiral," the man said, "your ships are yours again. You may leave whenever you wish. We have no desire to keep you. We only wanted to show you that we could. The lesson is over. You may go home and tell the others what happens when you threaten our home." The screen went dark. For a long time, the Conclave fleet just floated in the dark, silent space. The message was clear. Painfully, perfectly clear. Humanity did not want to rule them. They did not want to conquer. They had simply wanted to be left alone to learn. And when they were pushed, they had demonstrated that the galaxy's idea of power was a child's idea. They had not made war. They had simply changed the rules of the game, and they had done it without hurting a single soul. Slowly, one by one, the ships turned and jumped away. They did not go to conquer. They went to report, to tell the galaxy that everything had changed.
The Galactic Conclave Hall was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet. Before, it had been the quiet of busy, confident people. Now it was the quiet of a library or a hospital room. Every delegate from every species sat perfectly still. The air felt heavy.
The fear was gone, replaced by something else, a deep, weary understanding. They had all seen the recordings from the Sol system. They had seen their grand fleet turned into a harmless, floating light show. They had heard the reports from Admiral Tree, who spoke not with anger, but with a hollow respect that was worse than any shout of rage. Humanity had not just won a fight, they had ended an argument no one knew they were having. The main doors, which were usually shut, hissed open. A small group of 3 humans walked in. There were no guards with them. They wore simple, gray clothes without any decoration. They were a man, a woman, and another man. They looked calm. They did not look around at the amazing hall or the strange aliens. They simply walked to the center of the room, where the speaker's platform was. Ambassador Clark watched them. He recognized the man in the front from the broadcasts. He was the one who had spoken. His name was Alex. The woman beside him was Elena, the scientist from the Saturn station. The other man was Ben, the quiet engineer who had helped build the systems that had humbled the galaxy. They did not look like conquerors. They looked like people who had come to a meeting. Alex stepped up to the speaker's spot. He looked out at the sea of faces, at the tentacles and eyes and crystal bodies. He began to speak, and his words were translated softly into every language. "You offered us a seat at your table," he said. His voice was clear, not loud. "But the offer came with a condition. We had to be like you. We had to talk like you, fight like you, show our strength like you. When we did not, you thought we were broken. You called us inert, and you forgot us." He paused, letting his eyes move over the crowd. No one dared to look away. "So we used your silence to learn. We listened to everything. Your news, your science, your stories, your arguments. We learned how you build your ships. We learned how you write your computer codes. We learned what you fear and what you ignore. We did not build a bigger gun. We built a better key." Elena spoke next. Her voice was softer, more thoughtful. "You saw our quiet and thought it was empty. It was not. It was full of questions. You fight over who owns a star or a moon. We spent that time asking a different question. How does your star work? How does your moon affect your ships? You forced a dialogue of power. We are not interested in that dialogue." Ben, the engineer, took a small step forward. He was holding a simple data chip. "Your systems are beautiful. They are also loud. They shout their presence. They are easy to find and easy to listen to. We built our systems to whisper. You never learned how to listen for whispers. That is why you never heard us coming." He placed the data chip on the edge of the speaker's platform. "This contains the basic principles of our quantum silent communications, the technology that let us listen without being heard. It is a gift." A murmur went through the crowd. "A gift? After everything?"
Alex nodded. "It is not a trick. It is the first lesson. Strength is not about being the loudest in the room. Sometimes it is about understanding the room so well you don't need to shout. You tried to make us talk on your terms. We are now offering to talk on new terms, terms built on understanding, not on fear." Ambassador Clark found himself standing. He had not planned to. His legs just moved. All eyes turned to him. "What are your terms?" Clark asked. His purring voice was rough with emotion. Alex looked at him. "The first term is this: you will never again assume that silence means weakness. The second, the Sol system and all human space is ours. You will not enter without permission. The third, the conclave will become a place for sharing knowledge, not for showing power. We will help you learn to listen, as we learned. We will help you see the weaknesses in your own systems so you can fix them. Not so we can use them, but so no one else can." He looked around the room again. "We do not want to rule you. We want you to be better. We want the galaxy to be safer and smarter and quieter. The time for shouting is over. The time for real listening has just begun." For a long moment there was no sound. Then slowly, Ambassador Clark bowed his head. It was a deep formal bow of his people. It meant respect and surrender and hope all at once. One by one, the other delegates followed. The Takan representative, his pride broken, gave a stiff nod. The Krall's silicate plates clicked together softly in a sign of accord. The humans had not come to give orders, they had come to start a school, and the galaxy, humbled and weary, was finally ready to be a student. As the meeting ended, Kalar approached the humans. He looked at the small data chip. "You could have taken everything," he said quietly. Alex picked up the chip and handed it to the ambassador. "We did not want everything. We only wanted our silence to be respected, and we wanted to be left in peace to learn. Now we can all learn in peace together. That is a better prize than any empire." Kalar took the chip. It felt light in his hand, but he knew its weight was immense. He thought of the gray ships, the quiet probes, the years of hidden study. They had ignored humanity's silence, and they would regret that arrogance for 1,000 generations. But, perhaps, just perhaps, that regret would be the foundation for something new, something better. The silent neighbors had not been sleeping, they had been watching, and now they were willing to teach.